We have had a lot of conversation this morning about a wide variety of things, but one of the things that struck me and one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be here with you today was hearing your story about being a mom in college, because that was very much so a part of my story. And I think that's why it's so important to have so many different voices represented, because that's something that I very much so thought was a Black experience, right? It's always talked about how we have to figure it out and how we have to make a way, but here you are with a very similar story, very different upbringing, and somehow we've all managed to come together. And so I guess my first question is, what other things in your story pushed you to this moment? Why this? Why now?
So, growing up, my dad was very civic. It's like being the pastor's kid. My dad was chamber president. He was JC's president. We were volunteering at everything all over town. And he'd always be like, Holly, you gotta act straight because everyone knows who I am. True story, when I was in college and I went on a date, one of my dad's friends' business, from the chamber was like, hey, Holly, how are you doing? And I'm like, oh, hey, sir. And he's like, who's this guy? I'm like, a friend. There were eyes everywhere. All business owners know each other. And so with that very civic upbringing, I was always taught to volunteer, always to give back to the community. Well, so, as you said, I had a kid in college early, and that was a hard conversation to have with parents. And it's hard. I think it's even harder when they're Asian parents, but it may be very similar, He was so mad. I got kicked out of the house. It was a whole thing where I had to figure out where I was going to live. I had to sign up for WIC, Medicaid, the Head Start program. And I worked full-time so that I could go to school part-time still while juggling the kids. And going to all those appointments, because you have to go to the appointments to keep getting your WIC coupons, And so it was a really hard time. It took me 8.5 years to get my degree, but I crawled across that finish line and I got it. Because I do believe in my heart of hearts that education is what lifts people, out of every situation. But it has given me an interesting lens in my time in government, in that I will change government, always, tilted in favor of people who are 2 paychecks away from college. Because I remember what it's like. I'm still there, let's be real, okay? So it's like, how can government work better for people? And the example I'll give you is, when I was a village trustee, I taught people how to appeal their assessments. Because if you could get a couple $1,000s, even a couple hundred, heck, any money in your pocket, that's money for you. And I actually got pulled into the principal's office, and the village administrator said, if you teach people this, we're going to get less money. And I had a minute to be like, wait, is this illegal, what I'm teaching them? He goes, no, it's public info. And I go, well, my understanding is they only lower it if it's warranted with data, right? And he goes, well, yeah, that's true. And I go, so am I here for the village or am I here for the people? And it came out just that casually because I'm new to politics and I'm just saying what's on my mind. And he goes, I'm just saying, you're an elected official now and you have to represent blah, 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 blah. But I decided at that moment, it was always going to be for the people, no matter how stubbornly I had to fight, whatever the system was. And so that was at the village. At the township, I actually asked the board, I go, what do you guys want to accomplish in the next 4 years? And the board member said, help the most amount of people that we can. And I said, okay, well, my brain is from the tech sector, so it's always outside the box thinking. And I said, we could take out all this wood and all the pictures of the old supervisors and all that and turn this into a food pantry, this boardroom, right? Because you don't have one right now. And they decided yes. They voted yes to do it. And we put in freezers, coolers, shelves. It was a shopping cart model, which had more dignity in it, and people can choose the food they want. And it actually ended up saving money for the township. So then, fast forward to now, I'm blessed that I have 2 terms served as the county treasurer in Lee County, Illinois. One of the first things I did the first year is we had a resident come in. They live in a mobile home. And they're like, I want to talk to the treasurer. And I came out to speak to them. And they said, I can never pay my property taxes for my trailer home because the late fees keep racking up and I chip away at it and it goes back up again. And I can't get to the principal so that it will stop accruing the late fees. So I looked into it and it was true that mobile homes, their late fees can be 200% of their bill. And it is only uniquely mobile homes and not regular homes, right? So I contacted my state rep. We ran a bill that says, even if you were to pay late, you get a little hand slap, it's never going to be more than half your bill. Well, All the county treasurers fought against it. The association fought against it. When I went to their next meeting, they sat me down and had a come to Jesus talk and said, you know, why I shouldn't be doing this. You know, negotiation is all about listening, so I listened to their concerns. I changed it so it would be optional, you know, and anyone could decide if they wanted to do it or not. They didn't want that either. Okay, so I did population based. I got passed by one vote, and Lake County's the only county with that relief, but I believe it should be statewide. You know, it is really a way that they keep fines and fees to keep people down, I think, for sure. And so, I will tell you though, I'm someone who's very like results oriented, and nowadays, it's Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter, they want you to produce something. They want elected officials who actually deliver something tangible in their hands, and I have done that in a series, and this is an example, and I have amended fences with that board. Just 2 weeks ago, they swore me in on the County Treasurers Association, right? Because I'm results oriented. So the other things I've done too in that office, and if you don't mind me nerding out for a second, is
It's your show.
yeah, it's all our shows. But I was like,
So I process mapped as soon as I got there, and we digitized work so staff could work from home 2 days a week. You know, I'm all about modernizing and making it work for not only the public, but people. And we found a way for people to pay their property taxes online with no fees, with free e-check, and we like negotiated that in. And I also found a way that each one of our investment buckets, their output grew 200% or more. Just because I found a way. I either negotiated, I haggled, and in some cases I pit all the investment firms against each other so that they produce higher results than they ever had. And I'm very proud of this one account we have where the property taxes flow through it. And I asked the bank, I said, hey, could you raise the interest on that? It's like 1%. And they're like, yeah, this is customary, interest-bearing checking 1%, everyone has this, right? And they're like, no, I don't think we can, because that's, and I said, that's fine, I'll just go somewhere else. And they're like, hold on, Holly. They're like, you know, let me talk to the manager about this. And they raised it to 4%. So I got an extra $3.2 million, and I didn't keep it, but I gave it to the schools, the parks, the libraries. There's a school out there that got $140,000 they never asked for. And it's only because I asked for higher interest, right? And so if there's a way to do something, I'm gonna find, I have joy in finding ways to reform government. And so I'm looking forward to answering all your questions today, you know, about doing the job. And I'm definitely running as the candidate who is experienced in not only managing an executive office and administering, but also administering billions of dollars with a B. I'm the only one running out of all the candidates who's already doing the job of controller.
I passed you the mic, I think, yeah.
Absolutely. When I was doing my research on you, because I don't like to come to anything over here, one thing that struck me, and I think that has informed your decisions, is that in your first term you did 50 community meetings. Am I understanding that correctly? A minimum of, that's an average of at least like 1 per month. And so I see you as someone who has really tried to balance fiscal responsibility with public responsibility. And so my next question is, how do you plan to use those experiences and the things that you heard as Lake County Treasurer to inform your vision for the state as comptroller?
So I love that the Lake County Treasurer's Office, I love to say, is the intersection between math and social justice. I was an activist before I got in, I've been an activist the whole time I'm in there, and I will continue to be my whole life. I have a restless heart, you know, and it's hell-bent on mercy and justice. So one of the things that we did at this point, it's been 7 years out of the 8 years of my terms there, and we have done over 100 financial literacy seminars. Again, I believe education is what lifts people out of their situations. Frequently, we kick off our financial literacy classes where I say, you know, growing up, I was taught it was rude to talk about money, right? We all agree on that, and frequently it's a minority community. We have members on our financial literacy, and I was saying it was rude that we talk about it, and I go, well, you know who talks about it all the time? Rich people. They talk about it in front of their kids, they talk, whether they're talking to their broker at dinner in front of their kids, and they will advise their kids on what to do with the money. So I think it's somewhat of a social construct that we were taught not to talk about it, but they could talk about all they want. So one of the financial literacy classes that we had reoccurringly was free grant money to buy homes in historically redlined areas as well. I believe always, you know, you should lead with intention. And if we can restore some of what happened in the past, we should, fight for those efforts. I also sit on the current controller's Bank On Commission. And the Bank On Commission, specifically the Predatory Lending Committee. And one of the things that we worked on, and we worked together with the Black Caucus and our legislators to pass a bill to lower the rate at which payday loans could charge. And every single one of them closed up shop and left the state of Illinois. So I think definitely, as Illinois State Controller, I'm going to continue this. Not only the financial literacy, but that bend to protect people and their families with their money.
Thank you for that answer. I know we kind of dived into your vision, so let's slow down a little bit, right? There are a lot of offices on the ballot, and there are a lot of lesser known offices on the ballot, and I would argue that comptroller is one of those. So for the audience, can you explain exactly what a comptroller is? What are some of the responsibilities, and how do you plan to bring your experiences into that role?
Yeah.
So, as county treasurer, I manage the money coming in and investing in. And I manage the money going out, right? Billions of dollars go through my office currently. At the state, it's so big, you have one person for the money coming in and investing, that's the treasurer, and one person for the money going out, that's the controller. And so the controller's role and their power truly is that hand on the faucet, controlling the water. Because you could either speed up payments, as you've seen, doing an early payment towards pensions, things like that are tools, or bumping up social services during times of difficulty, like during Rauner times when nothing was being paid. I was in a nonprofit for senior care, and we did home health care, and we had to beg and beg. We had to practically call the controller's office every single day asking that any amount of reimbursement or invoices be paid, because we had 2 months of operating budget left, and that was it. And we didn't know who was going to take care of these seniors if we weren't around anymore. But we did see a lot of nonprofits closing during that time when there was no budget. I think what's interesting about that is not only my lived experiences of having a kid in college and going through hard times, but seeing it from the other end, how dependent the nonprofits were on the controller's office and their payment. It really gives me a perspective going into this office on how important it is that we prioritize the needs of vulnerable people, right? As someone who was literally on it, but also experienced it from the board sort of the way. The other way too is straight out of college, I worked at a pediatrician's office, and I'm the one who typed in all the ICD-9 codes for the billing. And I noticed, this was a long time ago before, it was not our current or the previous controller, but I'm old. But when we billed for all the pediatrician visits, the shots, the kids who were sick with the flu and whatnot, at some point in the year, the reimbursement stopped until there was a new budget passed and the appropriation buckets were filled. Now, during that time, I would notice, and I said to the rest of the staff and the doctor, I go, why aren't we being paid by the state for, seeing the kids and being reimbursed in our billing? And they told me how these cycles go and how at some point they run out. But in observing that, our doctor was okay with his cash flow. But I will tell you specifically, that is why other offices closed or stopped taking the All Kids program, or some dentists stopped taking All Kids program. Now, what was the end result of that? Me, as someone who had a kid in college, having to drive 40 miles to take my kid to a dentist because there was nobody closer that was taking the All Kids program. And so it is a unique lens that which I have to go into this office to make sure not only do I continue with the cash flow, but also we have the power to turn off that water as well. One of the things that she's known for is her prevailing wage department, where state contracts, public funds paying public projects, that we pay the prevailing wage, and if you don't, we have to protect all of our union workers as well. And I will say that there are maintenance workers who want to be part of that prevailing wage cause, housekeeping, so that when they're working projects that are state projects, that they're paid prevailing wage as well. That would be a great addition. But yes, I would plan to continue not only being someone who can do the job itself, but then here's all these other added benefits that come with me as the controller. Someone who understands, someone who will prioritize not only rural health, but all of our vulnerable populations, anyone who needs that reimbursement for their seniors, for their kids, for all medical programs. But then also having that lens towards what else can we do to change things to be better, That's where my heart is anyway.
That's where your heart is supposed to be, so I appreciate that. So you have a lot of experience, both managing money, changing things up, thinking outside the box, which in your words puts you ahead of some of the other candidates in the race, which means first day you're ready to go.
That's right.
So can you share with us what your first year and what your first term is going to look like?
I love this question. It's because no one ever asked me this question, but I have been thinking about it. So I have a running list of things that I already want to do. So as a county treasurer's office, I work with the state controller. And I will tell you that when I receive transfers from a bank, it comes with details. But when I receive wire transfers from the state, there's less details, which means I have to find out which department this belongs to, and reconciliation's a little bit harder. It's because it's a technology thing. What that tells me is they're using an old mainframe system and they need to update their software. So being from a tech background, number one, I'm gonna go in and process maps, see what I can make more efficient, see where we can save some time. And then that frees them up to be proactive, the staff, to do proactive work. So I'm gonna touch on that in a second. But we definitely need a software upgrade in this department. Not only do they need a software upgrade, we need to beef up cybersecurity. Because I will tell you that one of the most common scams, and it even happens to my office, is sending out checks. They acid wash the to line and they put in a different name. Now we catch it with software in my office, but I need to make sure that the state doesn't have a single dollar go awry. And paper checks are the least secure way to do things. So I would try and move more people towards ACH, or the more secure ways. Again, I taught not only with the Bank on Commission, but I believe it was the Illinois State Department of Revenue. We did a whole thing on teaching municipalities about common scams for our money. But going back to the staff part of it, in freeing up my staff from hand-entered data, they were able to do proactive work, which normally would take 6 months for us to get to. We would have work that we put off till winter because we don't have time while we're collecting property taxes. So in that same way, I have a running list of things that I think are more proactive, that once I get things more streamlined at the controller's office, that I would have more on. And one of them is helping municipalities who need help with audits. Annual audits, it's a chicken and an egg. These municipalities either can't afford a finance director, and if they're not in compliance, they can't get grants. So then it continues them further down the line. And it's not just them. There's a shortage of financial professionals across the state, especially in government sectors, because they pay more in the private sector. That's what it is. So there's that. There's also a department at the controller's office that will tell you, government entities, if there's outstanding checks you haven't cashed. But I will tell you that probably in the 7 years that I've been in this office, they've contacted me once. But I filled out all the paperwork to reclaim those checks. It was $800,000 worth of checks going back to 2013. So this is something that could be done more proactively, I think. And it's not their fault. Right now they're bogged down. I think they're doing a lot of manual stuff. So it takes a techie person to go in, streamline all that, so then you can work on these other things as well.
And I would argue outside of it just being a tech thing, it was interesting earlier today. You said, well, I'm a mama, I can't turn that off. And if it's one thing that mamas know how to do is be efficient.
Yes.
And so in the short term, right, it's about getting things in a more efficient manner. But what are your plans for some of the longer term obligations, like our long-term debt, the pension system? How do you plan to make that more efficient and secure for everyday Illinoisans?
Yes.
So I always believe that being proactive saves money from being reactionary, right? And whether it's work that's proactive saves you from being reactionary, I also believe money is the same. For example, getting preventative health care always keeps you from having to pay a lot of money in the emergency room later. And so we take a look at, our financial obligations. Again, this office does not determine how much we pay into our pensions. It makes the payment. But when possible, if other bills are already paid, I would love to continue doing the early payments into the pension program. If you go on the website, actually, they have these graphs that show you in what year they're going to be squared up with not only the pension obligations, but also there's some bonds that they floated in order to pay the bill backlog after the Rauner time, because during that time there was about, I forget if it was like $1 or $2 billion in late fees, just late fees. That wasn't even the bill. That's like taking $1 billion of gasoline and lighting it on fire. And so they took a bond out to help pay down a whole bunch of those, and those bonds will be paid off too during, I believe it's like in the next 5 years. And so I would continue these proactive efforts that would help us to save money in the long run, and definitely work with the legislators on the pensions as well. But like I said, some of it has to do with helping the municipalities, and I'm a big proponent of the Illinois Municipal League, and helping out not only mayors and trustees with their financial obligations to the controller's office.
So what is your philosophy on fiscal oversight? Do you feel that as a comptroller you should take more of a watchdog approach, or do you plan to take more of a collaborative approach and allow other groups to provide input on how money is spent?
So I'm both. As a mom of 4 kids, yes, I'm both. I could be like good mom, nice mom, but I'm also like mom. Actually, it's funny because between me and my husband, I am the disciplinarian, so I'll probably be more the watchdog than the. But it's a chicken and an egg, right? Like I said earlier. So it's like on one hand, I will definitely make sure that the pension obligations are paid. These are promised wages. And I will tell you historically, in the past, everyone would say it out loud. They'd say, well, government jobs pay a little bit less because the benefits are good and the pension's good. And that's what people heard back then when they signed up to work. And so this pension is a promise, right? And we have to pay for it, and I can't let that slide. Part of it's being that watchdog, right? What's a watchdog without teeth? But the watchdog is also against all the other constitutionals as well. I will work well with them, but I don't work for them. I work for the people. And part of it is being that watchdog as well. But where it becomes like the nicer, kinder Labrador Retriever is the fact that I understand that some challenges are systemic. And it's not because they're just trying to skirt me and not put in an audit. It's because they actually cannot. And we need to work on some of those stem reasons why they cannot, so that we stop that cycle. Just like as county treasurer, I try to stop the cycles of people who, never were taught how to manage their finances, so that we can start building generational wealth in their minds. In that same way, we have to find a way to work with municipalities who are out of compliance on their audits. And I understand it's systemic, right? That's where the conversation is if with that understanding, it's like, what can I do that's new and novel, and how can I change this so that you could be in compliance? And then you start getting grant funds, and then, I don't have to call you anymore. Let's work on that, So yeah, I'm collaborative, and so it's a chicken and an egg, and I want to help stop that cycle for them.
One of the things I respect about you is that even in your current role as treasurer, where the majority of your job is interacting with other government agencies, you've really been intentional about engaging with the community and staying connected to the community. So what are your plans to stay connected to everyday Illinoisans during your term? But going past that, right, think about to the conversation we had earlier, how do you provide space for young people in this role and making sure we're bringing everyone into this role?
So this is 3 different questions, but in case I forget one of them, you just remind me.
I got you.
But how do we bring young people into this role? So first and foremost, the #1 top job that young people say they want to do is what?
No idea.
It's influencer. And
My son wants to be a YouTuber.
I feel that there's an opportunity here that if we're doing financial literacy classes anyway, so the controller has not only a program for rescue dogs, but they have a kids cooking program. There could be a program that teaches kids the skills to be the influencer, the podcaster, and whatnot. And while we're training them, to have them teach financial literacy. Because I do believe that the kids will digest it better from another kid's mouth than just an adult always speaking to them, right? So you have someone at their own level teaching them about financial literacy. That would be not only great for the controller's office to include young people, but it'd be great because at an early age, they're getting that financial, good footing, right? Which is what I would want. I want them to be lifted out of all situations. So I think that is a great opportunity right there. The second thing is I am a different kind of elected official. I live stream. I go on podcasts. I mean, look at what we're doing today, right? And I make explanation videos, and it is a different time where people want that accessibility out of their elected officials. And it is one thing for, you know, anyone to throw a town hall together with, you know, 400 people. But then I remember being someone in that audience going, I'm not going to ask a question in front of 400 people. Like, you know, you get nervous as someone attending. And so having that lens, it's a great equalizer when you live stream. Anyone can ask anything in the comments with no fear. I mean, some people need a little fear because those questions are out of control. But no, I'm just kidding. I will answer every question actually in the live stream. And one time, I actually, after an event, I got KFC drive-thru, and I just parked the car, and I hit the live stream button, and I was like, guys, I'm in between events. I have like 20 minutes. And I'm gonna eat my Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I want you to ask me questions. You know, I'll give you updates about this race. Ask me about, you know, the controller function, or like, you know, what qualifications I have. Like, let's just have a conversation. So in between my bites and me, like, you know, I'm sure my campaign manager was like, oh my gosh, Holly, like, you know, and people might have been judging how I eat, but I eat like a starved raccoon, I'm just saying, but I eat with my soul, so all the food was coming in. But I answered the questions, and I had a conversation with like 20 some odd people, you know, in that moment. And that kind of accessibility is what people want nowadays. I think it is a great time to have all different kinds of elected officials right now in Illinois politics, and I think we need that. So there was a third question in there, which was young people, meeting people where they're at.
Only being engaged with the public, how do you plan?
Oh wait, but I do have more. In that I am all about maximum public transparency. I am, as a netizen, which is someone who lives on the internet, maximum public transparency. However, I'm all about maximum personal privacy. So in that same way that even though I am tech forward, I live stream, my life is public, I am very protective, and I'm a privacy rights advocate that follows the ACLU on people's personal privacy rights. And one thing that we have to realize about this office is that it has hundreds of thousands of pensioners' data, more than 60,000 staff people's data, and every single one of our tax refunds. You know, from whenever we filed our Illinois state taxes, it's there. And one of the things that we have to consider right now is we need privacy rights advocates during a time of mega overreach. They are trying to put their tentacles in everything, and I will vehemently fight that. When I was a village trustee, I brought up all the conditions that we needed for license plate readers, including one, paying for software, not sharing that data outside of our state. Number two, like that if they did nothing wrong, that we have to release that data within 48 hours. Anyway, I had a whole laundry list, and our police chief agreed to follow every single one of them, including paying for a license. Now, I will tell you, the software company reached all these villages who are cash strapped and said, you give me your license plate data, we give you the software, it's free, which led to this leak that happened about a month ago, right? And ICE was using that data. And so that was 13 years ago when I made those rules for license plate readers, and to this day, I'm still a staunch privacy rights advocate. So don't just think that because I do all these things publicly that I would be that loose with everyone. No, it's the other. I'm fiercely the other way for everyone's privacy data as well.
I appreciate that, and even touching on that subject, because we're living in a time of fear.
It's a wild time.
It is an insane time right now, and so I appreciate even the forward thinking of recognizing that people are just scared, and every single office has a role where they can play in making us feel just a little bit safer, a little bit more a part of something and not so isolated. We are coming to the end, but my final question for you, what do you want people to know about you, both as a person and as a political candidate?
I think what I would want people to know about me is what you're seeing is what you're going to get. I'm always one person the whole time. There's no public Holly and private Holly. There's no two Hollies. And I'm just a regular person that's doing the best that they can to change and reform government in such a way that benefits the people. You know, one day I won't be doing this, you know, and that's the time when God's probably like, okay, Holly, you know, well done, good and faithful servant on this. But until then, I have a mission, I have a calling, and I am someone who is not afraid to be in the public in every single community And what I do want the audience to know is I'm very intentional with my leadership. If anything you've heard in the last few minutes, you're like, dang, Holly's really thought about that, or Holly was really proactive about that. Everything I'm intentional on. And one of the things I'm also intentional on is my need to continue our love and our party for diversity. And I'm just gonna plug that in there. Because when the Republicans were getting rid of DEI, that was one of their tenets, but when it got real quiet on our side too, and that quietness is very deafening to me. And I'm someone who grew up in the 90s, and everyone was on the train, always. Everybody from every culture, you need to make sure that, whether you were doing a project or whatnot, you had someone from everywhere, right? Representation matters. And right now, I'm currently the chair of the Asian Caucus for the state of Illinois, so I'm hell-bent on making sure that we continue with not only modernization and good people in office and transparency, but also our diversity piece that makes us Democrats. To be honest, and I will never let go of that. So thank you for having me here today. And I do want to remind everybody, I am in a 5-way primary. I'm one of the 5. And so election day is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. So I would hope to be your racehorse, and please vote for Holly Kim. Thank you.
Before you stop recording, I said that was my last question, but how can people follow you? How can they find you? We didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
So I live on the internet, and all of my handles are Vote for Holly Kim. So it's @ Vote for Holly Kim on Insta, TikTok. I think I even on Snapchat, like Facebook, I'm on everything. And even my Gmail is voteforhollykim@gmail.com. And the website is voteforhollykim.com. Thank you very much. God bless you.